Start off alphabetically, so let's F becomes before S, so Brad, you're the starting point.
Hey, Joe.
And with that, I'm going to allow you, first of all, you get 3 minutes to give us an idea of your platform, whatever you'd like to share with the candidates in the forum, or the participants in the forum, please.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. I'm Fred Finn. I just served my first term in the state legislature. I've been married for 32 years. My wife, Bonnie, is a nurse. My daughter is studying to be a nurse. My son is a first grade teacher within the district, and my other son is, like so many of his generation, just graduated from school and is out looking for a job. By way of background, I'm a graduate of Johns Hopkins University and Fordham University School of Law. I started my career at the Federal Communications Commission after getting out of the Army, and then served in a variety of capacities, ending up as a partner in a telecommunications law firm. And a client sent me out to this wonderful part of the world. I fell in love with it, built a radio station, owned a couple of retail stores, and have been renovating buildings for the last 10 years, principally in a 3-county area. Those of you who may be from Mason County would know the building First and Railroad that has Vern's Restaurant. I ended up, this is my first term in the legislature, as I mentioned, on 7 different committees. I think they saw me coming, because most of the legislators serve on 3 or 4. I was vice chair of technology and also assistant whip. I did not miss a single floor vote in my first term in the legislature. In terms of priorities for what is coming up now, I think our major priority has to be the economy and jobs. And as someone who has spent virtually his entire life in the private sector, except for my time in the Army and the FCC, I think I'm uniquely qualified in that area to deal with the tough issues that you have in private business. In addition to that, I think education, which we've started to reform, which is the reason I got into the legislature to begin with, is an area that we've got to keep focusing on. I served 9 years on our local school board, and our frustration with how we deal with education in the state is one of the reasons that I became involved in seeking to change that situation. Finally, from a transportation policy standpoint, the Belfair bypass is an important issue, I think, for the district. I serve on the Transportation Committee, and got the bypass back on track this year through getting additional funding to put in for an environmental assessment, and also getting the Department of Transportation to come up with some less expensive options. Those 3 are the major priorities that I have. I think particularly the job area is the number 1, and I'll talk more about that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. And Linda?
Now I feel obligated to stand. Just teasing. My name is Linda Simpson. I am running for state representative in the 35th District, position 2. I have lived here in Bremerton for about 13 years. I'm originally from California. I have an undergraduate degree in biology from the University of California at Santa Cruz. I have a master's degree in elementary education from Old Dominion University out of Norfolk, Virginia. Because I'm part of the Navy, my husband, well, part of the military, I should say. My husband has put in 20 years with the Army National Guard, has served 2 tours to Iraq. I am a United States Navy reservist. I proudly serve my country as a mineman. I assemble underwater mines for the Navy. There is no mine shop here in the Pacific Northwest. The closest one is in San Diego. I work at Indian Island supporting the civilians in moving ammunition and weapons. I've also lived in Alaska when my husband was active duty Army. I served on the Fairbanks Counseling and Adoption Board. I am adopted. The very first line of my website bio says that I was born in a car. Yes, that's true, and it goes on to say that I am adopted. So I have a very fantastic family, and I was asked to participate and sit on the Fairbanks Board. Counseling and Adoption Board. I was a United Way volunteer when I lived in Alaska. When we moved here, well, I should back up a little bit, I'm sorry. I actually was a nanny in Paris as well, so I guess that's a little bit of something that's different. When we moved here, I have 2 autistic children. I have 2 children in the Bremerton School District, and the education they've received is superb. I cannot fault the special ed department at Bremerton. I just found out last week that my daughter will actually be unsupported by the special ed department in the resource room as early as next semester. My son in 5th grade was unsupported by special ed, so I give great credit to the Bremerton School District. Let's see, I've sat on the Bremerton School District Superintendent Task Force. I've been on their budget committee. I'm now very familiar with local Bremerton School District policies, how it's funded, where the money goes. I will be serving on that again. It'll start up the 29th of this month. However, I'm committed to a forum in South Kitsap for a candidate session. What do I believe is the problem? Our government no longer works for the people. Government doesn't work for us. We don't actually have a voice. Whether we've just sat back and let that happen, we're now engaged. People want to be part of the process. We want to be represented. I am here to work, to represent for the people what the policies are that's going to work for all of us. Not just a select few, but what's really going to work for everybody. So that's part of why I'm running. I also think that we can do better as far as balancing a budget without raising taxes. Let's see, education. I believe in true education reform, so I will give more information about that. And I would just really like your support, your consideration, and certainly your vote.
All right, thank you. And staying, now we move on to our questions, and actually we're going to just jump right out of the chute. Usually we let our candidates warm up a little bit, but the audience here is running. You guys will hit the ground running. So the first question is, starting with you, Linda, is how has government impacted your life in a positive way, such as job, health care, education? 1 minute, please.
I think the government has impacted my life in many significant ways. It's given me the opportunity to go to school. It's given me the opportunity to support our nation as a Navy reservist. The education funding has given my children a phenomenal education. I think there's a lot of opportunities provided by the government that all of us have the opportunity to use. I am very happy with the services that the government has provided for my family and for a lot of my friends' families as well.
Thank you. Fred?
I think the government has provided a whole bunch of things, particularly in the area of freedom of opportunity, the freedom to go out into the business world, to make a living for yourself, for your families, to succeed and sometimes to fail. I think the freedom of opportunity is the biggest thing. Number one, and number two, I think would be, I served from 68 to 71 in the regular Army. And when I got out, I had a year of law school, and I came back and finished the next 2 years of law school, and that was on the GI Bill. And that was very, very helpful. I don't think I could have done it at that time without it. So I think freedom of opportunity and occasional help to provide education. And also the third thing, I think, there's some special needs folks within my greater family, and the government through a variety of programs has been very helpful in that area.
Very good. And staying with you, Fred, this is the participant asks, pick a word that shows your philosophy of government, such as conservative, spender, liberal, etc.
In one word. That's a tough one. I would say limited. I think the government has very important functions in terms of safeguarding our rights. I think it can provide limited functions to spur business growth, but in the end, the government can't do everything for us. We have to rely on ourselves to do many things, but it can do things for those who are least able in our society to survive, and I think the government has a real legitimate role there to help out those who are least able to help themselves.
Thank you.
It would have to be freedom. We really truly are the beacon for the world of freedom. Our Constitution has provided us with all of the necessary tools to be free. So I think that Freedom is what we all aspire to. Freedom is what we want. We want freedom of choice, freedom of opportunity. We want the freedom to be able to live where we want without constraints. We have that opportunity here. And I think that we just need to remember that people around the world want to come here. They want to live in America because America is the shining light on the hill. We are the best the world has to offer. And I think we all need to remember that we live in a very privileged country. We have very wonderful opportunities for everybody here.
Thank you. So the next question is, staying with you, Linda, is doing the right thing isn't always easy. What decisions have you had to make for our community that were difficult and why, excluding running for office?
Difficult decisions. I was the PTA president at Kitsap Lake Elementary, and we had a little bit of problem with some funds, and I stood up and I said this wasn't right. We needed to get to the bottom of it, and it was a long, protracted event. It went over a year and a half, almost 2 years. I stood by what I believed. I asked the state auditor's office to take a look at what was going on. The state auditor stepped in, accepted my nice big thick packet of information. Was it easy? No. I did what I believe. The state auditor came back and agreed with my position, and I'll have to say it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Money missing from a nonprofit agency that benefits children is absolutely unacceptable. It was difficult. I'll have to admit it was very difficult, but I stood up for what I believed, and in the end, the issue was resolved.
Let me give you two examples, one in the private sector and one in the public sector. And in the private sector, I don't like to fire people, but sometimes it's necessary to do it. I ran a paint, wallpaper, art supply, automotive paint business for 10 years, and we had to fire 2 or 3 people, and that is not a pleasant experience for anybody, but you got to do it to keep your head above water, and hopefully it can be an instructive process for both the employer and the employee. In the public sector, the toughest vote I think I took this year was the vote in which we raised taxes. I voted against Initiative 960 initially because that was the will of the majority of our district, as expressed 56% of the folks had voted that initiative. So I voted against changing it, but in the end I had to vote for taxes because it was necessary to maintain a social safety net and education in the state.